I didn't say a word. Not one. I just stood in the hallway outside my father's home office, my hand still raised to knock, and I listened. Don't stress about it, okay? We'll figure it out. Your brother makes good money. He can cover it. My father's voice. Low, casual, like he was talking about borrowing a lawnmower from a neighbor, not like he was talking about my paycheck, my savings, my name on a loan I hadn't agreed to. I lowered my hand. I stepped back. I walked to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the floor for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't storm back down the hall. I didn't do any of the things you might expect from someone who just overheard his family making plans with his money without asking him. I just started thinking, and that, looking back, was the moment everything changed. Before I go any further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one, and if any part of this story feels familiar, I really want you to know you are not alone, and you are not wrong for feeling what you feel. My name is Marcus. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm outside of Columbus, Ohio. I'm not rich by any stretch, but I'm stable, I'm responsible, I pay my bills on time, I keep an emergency fund, and I've never once in my adult life asked my parents for money. That last part matters. Hold on to it. My brother's name is Derek. He's 26, 5 years younger than me, which means that by the time I was working my first real job and trying to figure out health insurance and car payments and rent, Derek was still in high school, letting my parents pack his lunch. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it because I need you to understand the dynamic from the beginning, so that when I tell you what happened, you understand that this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a pattern, a long, slow, deliberate pattern that I spent years making excuses for. Growing up, I was the responsible one. That was just my role, the way some kids are the funny one or the athletic one. I was the one who figured things out. When I was 16 and needed new cleats for soccer, I mowed lawns until I had enough. When I was 17 and wanted to go on the class trip to Washington, D.C., I worked weekends at a grocery store bagging groceries for 3 months. My parents never offered to help. I never asked them to. I just did it because that's what you did. Derek, on the other hand, got his cleats bought for him. Derek's class trip was paid for without a second thought. Derek never worked a single weekend job in high school, and I'm not saying my parents were obligated to fund everything for both of us equally. I understand that finances change, that families go through different seasons, but what I do remember clearly is the feeling of watching my brother receive without question the things I had to earn alone. And not once did either of my parents say to me, "We're sorry we couldn't do more for you." Not once did they acknowledge the difference. They just acted like it was natural, like I was built differently, like I didn't need the same things Derek needed. I carried that quietly for a long time. After I graduated college, loans I took out myself, scholarships I applied for myself, a work-study program I managed while taking 18 credit hours, I got my first real job and moved into a small apartment 40 minutes from home. I was proud of that apartment. It was nothing special. Thin walls, a parking lot view, a dishwasher that only worked if you kicked the bottom panel just right. But it was mine. I paid for it with money I earned. I visited home on holidays and most Sundays. I helped my father fix things around the house. I sat with my mother and watched her shows. I was present. I was a good son, genuinely. Not because I wanted anything in return, but because I loved them, because family meant something to me. Derek, by contrast, was in and out. He dropped out of one college, transferred to another, changed his major 3 times, and finally landed in a program for sports management that he seemed more or less indifferent about. He lived at home through all of it. My parents paid his phone bill, his car insurance, his streaming subscriptions. When he got a speeding ticket at 22, my mother paid it without being asked. When he wanted a new gaming setup for Christmas, it appeared under the tree. I know this because I was there. I watched it happen, year after year, and I told myself it didn't bother me. It did, though. I just didn't have the language for it yet. The first time I was directly asked to contribute financially to Derek's life, I was 27. He'd gotten into a minor car accident. His fault. He rear-ended someone at a red light, and his insurance wasn't going to cover the full cost of the other driver's repairs, plus his own deductible. My father called me on a Tuesday evening and explained the situation. Then he said, casually, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world, "We were hoping you could help out a little. Derek's still getting on his feet. I sent $500. I told myself it was a one-time thing. The second time, I was 28. Derek had decided to move into an apartment with some friends and needed first and last month's rent, plus a security deposit. He was working part-time but had spent his savings. My father didn't specify on what, and they were a little short. My parents asked if I could cover the deposit, $800. I sent it. I still told myself it was a one-time thing. The third time, I was 29. Derek had lost his part-time job. Not enough hours, he said, though I later found out he'd been let go, and was behind on his share of the rent. His roommates were frustrated. My parents were stressed. My father called, and this time my mother was on the line too. And they explained the situation in that careful, measured way that parents use when they've already decided what they want, but need you to agree to it. Could I help just this once? It would really mean the world. Derek was going through a hard time. I sent $600. And I want to be honest with you because I think honesty is the only thing that makes a story like this worth telling. Each time I sent that money, a small part of me felt good, felt needed, felt like I was playing an important role in my family. That's the thing no one talks about when they talk about being the responsible sibling. It doesn't just make you tired. It also makes you feel sometimes like you matter in a way you wouldn't otherwise. Like your competence is a kind of love that your family receives. But competence that's only acknowledged when it's needed is not love. It's utility. I understand that now. The year I turned 30, I got a significant raise at work and moved into a better apartment. 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a parking space that was actually assigned to me. I was doing well. I was proud of myself. I told my parents and they said, "That's wonderful, honey," and moved on. 2 weeks later, my father asked if I could start contributing a fixed amount each month to help with household expenses, their mortgage, utilities, Derek's phone plan, which was still on their account. I said yes, $300 a month for 14 months. I paid it quietly, automatically, the way I paid my electric bill. I never missed a payment. I never mentioned it at dinner. I just did it because they asked and because saying no felt like a kind of cruelty I wasn't ready for. What I didn't know at the time was that Derek had not been asked to contribute anything. He was living rent-free at home again by that point. The apartment with the roommates hadn't worked out. And as far as I could tell, his primary expenses were eating out and an online gaming subscription. He was 25, unemployed, and comfortable. And my parents, as far as I understood it, were fine with that. They weren't pressuring him. They weren't worried. They were, as my mother once put it, giving him time to find himself. I found myself while working 20 hours a week and carrying a full course load, but I didn't say that out loud. The night of the hallway, that's how I think of it now, the night of the hallway. I was home for a Sunday dinner. Derek was there, which was unusual. He'd been in a good mood, laughing a lot, talking about some online business idea he had that he hadn't started yet, but was really thinking seriously about. After dinner, I helped my mother clear the table and then went to find my father to ask about a leak he'd mentioned in the upstairs bathroom. His office door was mostly closed. I raised my hand to knock, and I heard Derek's voice first. "I just don't know how I'm going to get the startup money together. It's like, I have the idea, but the capital is the problem." Then my father. "We've been thinking about that. Your mother and I talked, and we think we might be able to help you with some of the initial investment. But you said you didn't have extra right now." A pause. "We're going to look at some options. There might be a way to use the equity in the house. Or we were also thinking Marcus might be in a position to contribute. He's doing well. He wouldn't miss a few thousand. We can talk to him about it. A few thousand. A few $1,000s. For a business idea Derek had not started, had no plan for, had no track record with. A few $1,000s from me, the person currently sending $300 a month toward their household. The person who had sent over $2,000 in the past 3 years to cover Derek's mistakes. The person who paid for his own everything since he was 16 years old. We can talk to him about it. Not, let's ask Marcus if he'd like to invest. Not, maybe Marcus would want to be a partner. We can talk to him about it. Like talking to him was a formality. Like the answer was already assumed. I stood in that hallway for probably 30 seconds. Then I walked back to the kitchen, helped my mother put the last of the dishes away, said I had an early morning, gave her a hug, found my father coming out of his office and told him the bathroom could wait, and drove home. I did not say anything about what I'd heard. I turned on no music on the drive back. I just drove and thought. Have you ever had a moment where something you sort of already knew became something you could no longer pretend not to know? Where the thing you'd been giving the benefit of the doubt just ran out of doubt? That was that drive home for me. Not rage, not heartbreak, just a quiet, clear, cold understanding. I was not a son to them the way Derek was a son to them. I was a resource. I was a plan. I was the option they discussed behind a closed door. And I was done. That week I did 5 things. The first thing I did was call my bank and remove my parents from the small joint savings account we'd kept open since I was 18 for emergencies. There wasn't much in it, but that wasn't the point. The point was access. They had it. I revoked it. The second thing I did was cancel the automatic transfer. The $300 a month that had been leaving my checking account on the 15th of every month for 14 months. I logged in, found the scheduled transfer, and deleted it. It took 45 seconds. The third thing I did was pull up my records. I am, professionally, a project manager. I document things for a living. I went back through my bank statements, my Venmo history, my texts, and I built a spreadsheet. Every dollar I had sent to my parents or to Derek in the past 4 years, every contribution, the $500 for the car accident, the $800 for the security deposit, the $600 for the rent, the $4,200 in monthly payments, the miscellaneous smaller amounts, the birthday dinner I quietly paid for, the grocery run I covered when my mother mentioned they were tight, the 2 tanks of gas I put in Derek's car on 2 separate visits home. When I added it all up, I had given my family, without being asked to repay a single cent in return, just over $9,000 in 4 years. $9,000. I looked at that number for a long time. The fourth thing I did was call my credit union and ask about freezing my credit. The man I spoke to walked me through it. It took about 10 minutes total across 3 bureaus. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. Frozen. No one could open a line of credit in my name or access my credit report without me unfreezing it first. I thought about what my father had said. We might look at some options. I wasn't going to be one of those options. The fifth thing I did was write a letter. Not an angry letter. Not a long letter full of accusations and old wounds. I want to be clear about that because I know some of you are going to ask. I did not write a letter designed to hurt anyone. I wrote a letter designed to be clear. It took me 4 drafts over 2 evenings. By the final version, it was 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph said that I loved them and that I was grateful for the ways they had been present in my life. The second paragraph said that I had been contributing financially to the household and to Derek's expenses for several years, and that I had made the decision to stop. I did not explain why. I did not reference the hallway. I simply stated it as a fact. Effective immediately, I would not be sending monthly contributions or responding to requests for financial assistance. I wished Derek well in his business endeavors and hoped he found the support he needed. The third paragraph said that I was still their son, that I still loved them, and that I was still willing to show up for them in the ways that didn't involve money, time, presence, help around the house, those things I was still offering. But my finances were mine, and I was not, and had never agreed to be, a funding source. I mailed it. Not emailed. Mailed. I printed it, folded it into an envelope, hand-wrote their address, put a stamp on it, and dropped it in the blue mailbox outside the post office near my office on a Thursday morning. Then I went to work. I want to tell you about the silence that followed, because I think the silence is actually the most important part of the story. 3 days after I mailed the letter, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She said she'd gotten something in the mail, and she wasn't sure she understood it, and could I call her back? Her voice was careful, not upset exactly. Careful. I texted her the following morning. I meant what I wrote. I'm happy to talk when you're ready to have a calm conversation. Love you. She didn't respond to the text. My father called 2 days after that. I answered because I thought I should give him the chance to talk. He said he was confused. He said he didn't know where this was coming from. He said that family helps family and that I was acting like, and this is what he said, I'm not embellishing, a stranger. I asked him, calmly, if he and Derek had discussed using my money for the business startup. Long pause. We were going to talk to you about it, but you hadn't yet. We were going to. Dad, I said. I know. Another pause. You were listening? I knocked and the door was open. I could hear him breathing. I waited. We didn't mean anything by it, he finally said. You're always so capable. We just assumed. And there it was. The most honest thing my father had ever said to me, probably without knowing it. You're always so capable. We just assumed. They assumed. They looked at me and they saw a function. A capable function, a reliable function. And they planned around that function without once stopping to ask if the function had feelings, had limits, had his own goals he was working toward, had a life that extended past the moment they needed something from it. I told my father that I understood, that I wasn't angry, that I still loved him, that I needed him to understand that I was a person, not a plan, and that from now on I would be making my own financial decisions without factoring in what the family might need from me. And I told him that if Derek wanted to talk to me about his business idea, I was open to that conversation, but it would be a real conversation between two adults, not an assumption made in a back office. He said he needed some time to think. I said that was fine. We hung up. Derek texted me about a week later. Just, hey, can we talk sometime? I said yes, and we made plans that were pushed back twice by him before we actually spoke. When we did talk, he was sheepish in a way I hadn't expected. He didn't ask me for money. He mostly just said he felt like he'd caused some kind of problem, though he wasn't totally sure what. I think, in his way, he was apologizing without knowing exactly what for. I told him there was no problem between him and me. I told him I cared about him. I told him I hoped he figured out what he wanted to do with his life. I meant all of it. What I didn't tell him was that his entire life, the way our parents had structured it, had been quietly subsidized by my silence and my compliance. That was not a conversation he was ready for. And honestly, I wasn't sure it was mine to have. That reckoning, if it ever comes, will be between Derek and himself. My relationship with my parents is different now. Not broken. Different. My mother calls every couple of weeks. We talk about her garden, about a show she's watching, about the neighborhood gossip she can't help but relay. She has not mentioned money once since that phone call. I don't know if my father told her to drop it or if she made that decision herself, but either way, I appreciate it. My father and I have a slower, more careful dynamic now. We talk about sports, about work, about the house repairs that still need attention. He asked me once, a few months later, if I was happy. It was so out of character that I didn't know what to say for a second. I told him I was getting there. He nodded and said, "Good." I'm choosing to believe he meant it. The $9,000 is gone. I'm not getting it back, and I've stopped wanting to. What I got in return eventually was something harder to quantify but more valuable in the long run. I know exactly where I stand. I know who I am in my family's eyes, and I know who I am in my own. And those two things, for the first time in my adult life, are not in conflict. I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it before you scroll past. Have you ever been the capable one, the dependable one, the one people just assumed would handle it? Have you ever given something, money, time, energy, peace of mind, because it was easier than saying no and watching people be disappointed in you? Have you ever overheard your own name in a conversation you weren't supposed to be part of and walked away knowing that the version of you they were discussing was not a person, but a resource? You don't have to answer that out loud. But if any part of what I just described feels like your life, I want you to know something clearly. Noticing it is not betrayal. Stopping it is not cruelty. Choosing yourself is not selfishness. It is the most basic, fundamental act of self-respect available to you. No one gets to make plans with your life without your consent. Not a stranger, not a boss, not a friend, and not a parent. Setting a boundary is not the end of a relationship. Sometimes it is the beginning of an honest one. I'm still showing up. I'm still calling. I'm still that son who helps fix things around the house on a Saturday afternoon when I have the time and the energy. The difference is, now I'm doing it because I want to, not because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't. That's what this whole thing was really about. Not the money. The money was just where it became visible. It was about the right to make choices about my own life without having those choices made for me in rooms I wasn't invited into. It was about being a person, not a plan. If you've been watching from the beginning, thank you. Genuinely. If this is the first video of mine you've found, I hope it's not the last. I tell stories like this because I believe there's something deeply important in seeing yourself reflected, in knowing that the thing you're quietly carrying is not just yours, that other people have stood in that same hallway and heard that same tone in their parents' voice and felt that same cold, clarifying shift. You are not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are not a bad child for deciding that love should not cost you everything. If you feel comfortable, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've been there. Tell me what you did, or what you wish you had done, or what you're still trying to figure out. I read them all, every single one. And your story matters, even if the only person who ever hears it is you. Take care of yourself first. I'll see you in the next one.